Hello and welcome to the Christ Lutheran Church Sermon Podcast. This is Matthew Best. I serve as pastor of Christ Lutheran Church in Allison Hill in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Thanks for being here. If today's message connects with you and what you're going through, brings you inspiration, or offers connection with God, I ask you to please stay on after the message for just a few moments to learn ways to connect with the congregation and the health ministries that we offer. And now, let's dive into God's Word. Our reading today comes from Isaiah chapter 9. But there will be no gloom for those who were in anguish. In the former time, he brought into contempt the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in the latter time he will make glorious the way of the sea, the land beyond the Jordan, Galilee of the nations. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in a land of deep darkness, on them light has shined. You have multiplied exaltation, you have increased its joy. They rejoice before you as with joy at the harvest, as people exult when dividing plunder. For the yoke of their burden and the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. For all the boots of the tramping warriors and all the garments rolled in blood shall be burned as fuel for the fire. For a child has been born for us, a son given to us. Authority rests on his shoulders, and he is named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Great will be his authority, and there shall be endless peace for the throne of David and his kingdom. He will establish and uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time onward and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of the hosts will do this. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. If the Old Testament prophets were around today, I feel pretty confident saying that they would probably not have a whole lot of followers on social media. They did not offer messages that would seem popular to modern day America, especially American Christianity. And I think you know the messages that do get a lot of traction. The prosperity gospel message, the whole rapture someone up so that they can watch God throw a hissy fit on creation theology, Puritan-like efforts to control what other people say and do, condemning those people, whoever they are, for who they are and what they do. Last week we heard about Amos speak truth into a country where truth was manipulated and twisted to enhance the powerful's position and to offer cover for their actions. We heard a prophet who knew the streets. He wasn't just familiar with them, he had walked streets just like ours. The stories repeat, only the names and the countries change. And today Isaiah steps onto those same streets. And he speaks not after the horror of a nation conquered, but into the horror as it unfolds. Because hope does not wait for things to get better before it speaks. Hope is not optimism. It's not happy thoughts. It's not denial. Hope is not sugarcoating anything. That's what makes it so powerful. Hope looks horror full in the face. It shines a light on what is real. And then, even when nothing looks different, hope declares it does not have to be this way. God is already putting us in a new direction, whether we want to go there or not. And let's be honest. If we're really honest with ourselves, we struggle with this. Times when we really don't want to go. Because hope means surrendering control. And we cling to control. Humans cling to control. It's our addiction. We cling to control as individuals, we cling to control as communities, and nations cling to control most of all. And in that sense, we're no different than the empires and kingdoms Isaiah confronted. addicted to control, domination, shaping reality to fit our desires. Isaiah sees this, and he refuses to lie. He names what's real, and then he names what God is doing anyway. Isaiah lived during the rise of Assyria, an empire that was swallowing up the northern kingdom of Israel. Assyria was not subtle, and it did what every empire that has ever existed has always done. They exploit, they conquer, they extract, they crush, they kill. Empires always operate this way because they share the same core creed. When the ends justify the means, everyone becomes disposable. And an empire built on that eventually collapses under its own cruelty. Isaiah is not surprised by the violence or corruption or lies, and he doesn't say, this is not who we are. Instead, he says, this is exactly who we've been. But God has other plans for who we are to become. And that distinction is where hope begins. And we have to name what's happening around us. This week, a couple days ago, clergy and lay leaders went to the Broadview ICE facility in Illinois to offer communion to people, to visit prisoners. They came to offer Christ's body and blood to people who were suffering. A colleague of mine said it best when he wrote the following about the incident. Just a quick reminder, he said, visiting the prisoner is one of a very short list of activities Jesus explicitly names as how to serve him. On November 14th, just a couple days ago, the official Department of Homeland Security X account called those clergy, quote, violent rioters. Amazingly, they posted the video, which contradicts the claim. You watch it, and these people are literally standing there, and what's happening is they're being shoved around. The only visible violence is from the government agents, shoving, knocking people down, arresting peaceful protesters. And then at the very end of the post, this is the official government account, ends with this. Get a job, you imbecilic morons. I have no words. No words that are suitable in a sanctuary. No, I'm not gonna. And yet Isaiah speaks into this with light. Not after it, into it. Because this is not new. 1965, the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, peaceful marchers, dressed in their Sunday bests, were met with tear gas, horses, clubs, simply for demanding the right to vote. State violence demanded the status quo. And this day became known as Bloody Sunday. 1837, Elijah Lovejoy, an abolitionist pastor, was murdered in Alton, Illinois, by a mob for printing the truth about slavery. When authorities couldn't control his message, they allowed him to be silenced. This is not new. These moments are consistent with a long pattern because we must tell the truth. Whether people call the United States an empire or not, we use methods of empire. Domination, control, imposing our will on others, twisting reality to maintain power, crushing truth tellers, banning books that reveal what actually happened, erecting statues that honor a lie. And when truth threatens power, empire tries to extinguish the light every time. But Isaiah says the opposite. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Right there in the darkness, not after, in it. We need to be clear. We've been on two paths at the same time. There's a word for this, dialectic. Two opposing things going on at the same time. America isn't an either or. It's always been a both and. A story of brutality and a story of liberation running parallel. You're familiar with the first path. It's been in all of our
Through school, the first path, the path of control and harm. Andrew Jackson's Trail of Tears, breaking treaties, stealing land, causing the death of thousands. John Adams, he wasn't a Boy Scout either. He had the Alien and Sedition Acts, criminalizing dissent, silencing political opponents. We had the Gilded Age, greed, brutal working conditions, child labor, wealth built on exploitation, the collapse at the late 1920s, speculative frenzy that leads to the Great Depression and massive suffering, driven by deregulation and greed. Herbert Hoover's failures that deepened the Depression and caused widespread homelessness. Warren Harding's corruption, Teapot Dome scandal that you probably don't know anything about, but you've probably heard the name. Officials selling off public resources. Richard Nixon, do I need to say any more? This is real. We can't pretend otherwise. But it's important to remember the other path that we have also been taking at the same time. A path of liberation and justice. The Emancipation Proclamation signed by Abraham Lincoln, declaring freedom for enslaved people in Confederate states. The 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments, ending slavery, guaranteeing equal protection and granting the rights to vote to black men. The Progressive Era following the Gilded Age, where there are now child labor laws to protect children, worker protections, the rise of unions. 19th Amendment, securing women's right to vote. Civil rights movement, desegregation, voting rights, fair housing, legal equity, marriage equality, affirming LGBTQ families and expanding dignity under the law. These are also real. Thank God. We have always pursued both paths simultaneously. And Isaiah cries out, choose the path of light, the path of liberation. Because the God who shines light in darkness is calling us towards the second path. Always. Light doesn't only expose horror, it also reveals goodness. Light tells the stories that empires try to hide, stories of people caring for one another, stories of healing, stories of communities refusing to be divided, stories of neighbors standing together even when the powerful try to sow mistrust and fear. Light shows us that God's new direction is always breaking in right now, often in small and quiet ways. And when our eyes and our hearts and our minds are open, we start to see it. Because that's what light means in Scripture. Open eyes, open hearts, open minds. And darkness is simply this: closing your eyes, clenching your fists, and putting blinders around your mind. Isaiah reminds us that God chooses openness over fear. We may be struggling with the question of where God is in the midst of this. It's a fair question. Why doesn't God do something? Why doesn't God act decisively? These are all really good questions. They're honest questions. They're questions that I ask sometimes when I struggle. So what does God do? God starts a new path forward. We see this embodied in Jesus and his way, a way guided by love, a way that frees victims and perpetrators, a way that creates possibility where violence only creates cycles. God's light is not violent. God's light is relentless love, breaking through our defenses. Isaiah is writing to people drowning in horror, and he reminds them of the day of Midian. That's a reminder of a story of Gideon, one of the judges, who was up against incredible odds. The Midianites had 135,000 soldiers, and Gideon had about 35,000. And he prays to God, and God says, send a whole bunch of them home. You got too many. So he sends some home. He comes back, and God says, no, send some more home. This goes on until he's down to 300. 300 against 135,000. And yet, they prevail. The story is meant to say when the odds are impossible, that's when we see God most clearly. We have our own day of Midian in this church. I've talked about it before if you've been here for a while. There were 7 people. The story of this congregation is fascinating. I can't say it enough. I do this all the time when I do tours. 1960, there were 3,000 members in this congregation. 1990, there were 7. Not 700, 7. And those 7 voted to move forward with the health ministries. No money, no staff, no certainty, no logical path of success. And yet, from that tiny seed came 3 clinics, thousands of lives touched, and a ministry that now holds this whole community together. Tell me that's not Midian. Tell me that's not God. Tell me that's not Christ's way. Isaiah would nod with recognition. So what is the light that God is shining now in 2025? It's this church, this place, this community. One of our taglines is, we're a beacon on the hill. Seems appropriate for this reading. And it's not just the building. No. Building can crumble and the community still exists. Because this is about you. It's about you. You are the church. We are the church. This community. People are drawn here because this place offers the light the world tries to extinguish. Here, people find the light of healing in a world full of harm. And that happens in a variety of different ways. The light of hope in a world full of discouragement. And boy, the world's got a lot of that. The light of real welcome in a world addicted to suspicion. The light of trust in a world where trust is just rare or non-existent. The light of love where the world demands control. The light of recognizing each person's God-given worth where the world dehumanizes. The light of Christ in a world addicted to violence, cruelty, judgment, and division. That's not just nice rhetoric. It's measurable. Since 2018, there have been over 100,000 visits to this church. Some of that is to the clinics. Some of it to the partner programs like Changing the Conversation, Power to the Hill, Gather the Spirit. Some of that's to worship. Some of that's to other things that happen here. People come because the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in the land of deep darkness, on them light has shined. And Christ, not us, ensures this light will keep shining. Not after the horror, not once everything is safe, but right in the middle of it. This is the time this church was made for. And the light of God will shine on people. Hope shines now. Light shines now. And the darkness cannot overcome it. Thanks be to God.
Thank you again for listening to the Sermon Podcast. I'm always happy to have a conversation or pray with you. Please reach out either by email to pastor@christharrisburg.org or call me at 717-236-8382. I'd also invite you to be part of worship on Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m. We're a very diverse, open, affirming, and laid-back congregation. Christ Lutheran Church is located at 124 South 13th Street in Harrisburg. Parking is along the street. You can enter the building through the side entrance on South 13th Street or at the corner of 13th and Thompson Streets. And lastly, check us out on the web. Our website is christharrisburg.org. There you can learn more about and offer your support for the congregation as well as the health ministries and free clinics that we provide to people in need in our neighborhood. I invite you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram also at Christ Lutheran Harrisburg. Thank you. I look forward to connecting with you, and I pray that you have a blessed week.